And it represents a huge gain, doesn't it, Gatewood?
I hope so in the collective consciousness. You know, you don't particularly have to win an election to do a great deal of education during the course of the campaign itself.
Yeah.
And so for those folks who didn't read the results, last November when I ran for governor, I was a third-party candidate. We got 15% in the state of Kentucky. When I ran for Congress this past November, we got 12% in central Kentucky. But those were the third and fourth best third-party efforts in the country in the United States since 1970. Only Ross Perot's 19% in his first presidential bid and Jesse Ventura's victory were the only more successful third-party efforts in all of the United States since 1970. So we did both of those with $20,000. And so what we have been proving over the last 13 months is that the American system of bringing about change through education and political activism is still alive and well, and an individual vote surely does count nowadays in America, as we've all come to realize since the presidential election. And but all that's very exciting, and all that's very it really gets the juices flowing, but at the end of it, it comes back down that I lost both of those, and now I'm back as a citizen Galbraith. So what I seek to do now is to present myself as a citizen and as someone who's experienced in certain matters, and I'm going to try to educate the public and educate the legislature and educate the elected officials who do occupy those offices in those issues which are important to me and within which I sought to bring about change if I had been elected.
And what are those issues right now? Just getting right into the education of everything.
In the overall, in 1971, I was 24 years old and a milkman. And I was involved in student demonstrations, and I saw very quickly that if I continued to be a person who spoke out and was aggressively involved in cutting-edge politics, that I had better learn what the system was about, or else it was going to eat me up. So I decided then I was going to go to college, become an attorney, and change the marijuana laws, and become governor and change the marijuana laws. So that was in 1971. I've done half of that. I went to college, I became an attorney. But in the overall sense, I want to lighten the load of government off of the people, collectively and individually. And specifically, I want to do that by changing the laws on marijuana in the state of Kentucky and changing the laws on hemp in the state of Kentucky. So I'm going to actively campaign from this point forward for medical marijuana to relieve the pain and suffering of the people of the state of Kentucky for whom marijuana is indicated as medicine, and to allow our farmers to grow hemp in the industrial textile sense. I ran for Commissioner of Agriculture on those issues in 1983, and those issues weren't transitory. They're based on strong principles, and so we need them now even more than we needed them in 1983. So that's what I'm going to be doing, is I'm going to be talking to folks about medical marijuana and hemp as an industrial textile.
Do you mind saying a few words about the history of Kentucky and marijuana and hemp?
I don't mind at all, and I think it's important.
I mean, it was a crop.
Yes. Folks, there's a great reason why there are people who don't want to see hemp, cannabis, grown as a crop, either in Kentucky or any place in the whole free world. Let's talk about the differences first between hemp and marijuana. Hemp we're going to use in terms of the industrial textile. Hemp is petroleum. Everything you make out of petroleum, you can make out of hemp. Include all your plastics, all your oils, all your fabric, anything to be made out of petroleum, be made out of hemp, because after all, hemp is petroleum. Mm-hmm. All petroleum is liquefied vegetative matter that was grown eons ago and trapped and stored the sun's energy. And that's what we're running around on right now in our cars, is the sun's energy that was processed and trapped through photosynthesis back when that vegetation was growing before it was set aside by nature and put through a liquefaction process, which we extract as petroleum now. And hemp is its present-day manifestation. Hemp is the most efficient photosynthesizing biomass on the planet. It more readily traps and stores the sun's energy than any other biomass. So it readily converts to petroleum with high energy content, could be converted any place, anything that liquid petroleum could be converted into. Converts readily into methanol. But there are a lot of things that can be done with hemp. But we're talking in the industrial textile sense when we're talking about hemp. We're talking about marijuana. We'll be talking about in the smoking, the medical aspect of it. And but hemp and marijuana are both cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
They both can be defined as the term cannabis. And hemp and marijuana are cannabis in the same way that Danny DeVito and Dennis Rodman are adult males. If law enforcement can't tell them apart, by the way, they don't belong in law enforcement. If they can't distinguish between Danny DeVito and Dennis Rodman, then they sure as hell can't distinguish between hemp and marijuana, and they don't belong in law enforcement. So when they say that growing hemp is going to camouflage marijuana, there's a hell of a difference in the view of it. But so when we're talking about hemp and marijuana, we're talking about the same plant, just bred in two different directions.
Well, with all these positive aspects of hemp or marijuana, what's the problem? I mean, back in '71, you went to work, and what happened? I mean,
you cannot. The people cannot understand. Patrick, people can't understand this. The sense of this. Just how deep the subject it is, unless they get some historical overview. So let me say this. Since time immemorial, the farmers, the people who owned land, the agrarian society produced the four basic commodities of civilization: fiber, fuel, medicine, and food. Before we domesticated crops, we were hunters and gatherers, and chased animals and gathered nuts and berries. And then we started domesticating crops as a human species, which, of course, as you know, is the basis of civilization. You had to stay in one place to till the crops, so you started villages. You walled the villages. The farmers produced the basic commodities of life: fiber, fuel, medicine, and food. They were all produced in the natural cycle. When land is the means of producing that wealth, even sharecroppers and people who know the business end of the whole have a role in the village and in the society, and an honorable role there. But the people who produce that, the crops flow up through the villages, into the towns, into the major cities, and the money that it generates flows back down through the towns, back into the villages, back out to the landowner. And land as a wealth-producing mechanism is a very diffuse mechanism. I mean, everybody shares in it, okay? And it gives life and vitality to the small towns. And so let's say 125 years ago, the farmer produced all the fiber, all the fuel, all the medicine, and all the food. And by virtue of that and the economy it produced from the agrarian society, you could be born in a small town. You could be born on a farm and your family could leave it to you. You could depend on that. You could be born in a small town and grow up and fall in love and raise a family and live and die in that small town because the economy would support you. We didn't have all these inner city problems we have right now, where people have been thrown off the lands and forced migration into the cities to compete for scarce urban resources. And we didn't have any environmental problems that we have today. Then in 1937, the New Deal legislation inserted a wedge into that natural cycle. It, for the first time under the 1937 Marijuana Tax Act, the government got the right to tell you what seeds you could plant and what you couldn't plant in the ground. That by vilifying hemp, by vilifying marijuana as an evil weed, the government took upon themselves extraordinary powers for the first time to tell the farmers of the United States what seeds they could plant in the ground, which ones they couldn't. And so they drove a wedge in. And this New Deal legislation was in response to the Depression, in anticipation of World War II, but it was in fact a New Deal between business and government that left the people and the Bill of Rights